Name ist Amelie. Ich bin Studentin in Hohenheim, studiere Management im Master und bin eine der Gründerinnen von Spoontainable. Und meine Geschäftspartnerin sitzt neben mir.
Genau. Hallo, ich bin Julia, ich bin 23 Jahre alt, studiere auch in Hohenheim Management, jetzt im 2. Semester im Master und ich bin die zweite Mitgründerin von Spoontainable.
Wir haben noch 2 weitere Mitgründerinnen, die studieren Ernährungswissenschaften und Diätetik und sind für die Entwicklung von unserem Produkt zuständig.
Genau, das ist einmal die Anja und dann nochmal die Carla.
Wir sind nicht nur Studentin, wir haben auch ein Unternehmen gegründet und arbeiten da jetzt während dem Studium nebendran, das groß zu machen.
Unsere Hauptidee ist eigentlich die Reduktion von Plastikmüll. Wir waren beim Eisessen und haben uns überlegt, okay, wow, jedes Mal, wenn wir dieses Eis essen, schmeißen wir einfach diesen Plastiklöffel weg. Dann sieht man noch diesen großen Berg von Müll, der sich da sammelt, in den Sommermonaten besonders. Gerade dieser Plastikmüll landet dann nämlich in den Meeren und das schadet nicht nur der Umwelt, auch den Tieren, die wirklich daran sterben. Und wir haben einfach uns gedacht, okay, das kann man doch bestimmt auch anders lösen. Und ja, so ist die Idee entstanden des essbaren Eislöffels.
Wir haben dann mal nach Zahlen recherchiert und haben herausgefunden, dass ca. 315 Millionen Plastiklöffel allein in Deutschland weggeworfen werden, wenn man so circa mit 9000 Löffeln pro Monat rechnet, pro Eisdiele, mit effektiven 5 Sommermonaten circa. Und das ist eine große Menge. Also unser Projekt ist entstanden in der Enactus-Gruppe in Hohenheim und lief am Anfang einfach mit der Produktion los. Wir haben überlegt, wie können wir ein Produkt gestalten, was nicht ein neues Problem schafft, sondern wirklich ein altes Problem einfach behebt und haben dann unseren Eislöffel kreiert. Der ist vegan, er ist ohne Zuckerzusatz, also wirklich gesund. Er ist nachhaltig, weil wir eine besondere Komponente in unserem Rezept eingefügt haben, was den Löffel nachhaltig und gesund macht und schmeckt auch sehr gut. Gibt es in verschiedenen Geschmacksrichtungen, haben dann über 10 Prototypen hergestellt, haben verschiedene Geschmacksarten, Formen, Konsistenzen ausprobiert und sind dann finally zu unserem essbaren Eislöffel gekommen, den wir jetzt auch patentiert haben und befinden uns jetzt mitten im Gründungsprozess. Unser Produkt ist einzigartig, weil wir Nahrungsfasern integrieren, sprich ein Ersatz für unser Mehl, was recycelt ist. Nahrungsfasern entstehen bei Produktionen durch Abfälle, die man aber immer noch essen kann, die Geschmack abgeben, die Halt geben, Konsistenz geben für den Löffel. Und dadurch ist unser Löffel einzigartig. Und er ist auch noch super gesund, sprich, sie tun dann auch was für ihre Gesundheit.
Genau, eine Waffel passt natürlich auch super zum Eis. Allerdings kann man sie wirklich nicht schön auslöffeln, sie würde nämlich brechen. Wir haben noch den Vorteil, dass wir verschiedene Geschmacksrichtungen haben. Aktuell Vanille, Erdbeere und Schokolade.
Und Zitrone.
Und Zimt haben wir auch noch im Angebot.
Wir verhandeln gerade mit einem Produktionspartner und auch Vertriebspartner, der global aufgestellt ist, der viele Standorte international hat und uns da auch helfen wird, unser Produkt in alle Länder zu streuen.
Der Produzent muss natürlich zum einen den Löffel produzieren können. Er muss auch in der Lage sein, mit unseren Komponenten zu arbeiten, also natürlich bestimmte Kriterien mitbringen, dass er eben genauso nachhaltig denkt wie wir. Dann ist auch ein weiteres Problem natürlich die Verpackung. Wir müssen den Löffel irgendwie verpacken können und natürlich ohne Plastik, weil das wollen wir reduzieren. Da stehen wir auch wieder vor einer neuen Herausforderung und der muss natürlich Freude daran haben, mit uns zusammenarbeiten zu wollen.
Wir haben bereits durch unser Netzwerk 2 Investoren gefunden, die uns am Anfang geholfen haben, auch unser Patent einzureichen und in unser Unternehmen glauben und auch an uns glauben und uns wirklich unterstützen möchten. Und jetzt brauchen wir natürlich weitere Investoren. Wir brauchen Geld, um die Produktion zu starten, die sehr teuer ist, um einfach unser Produkt auch weiterzuentwickeln. Und jetzt geht es ins Crowdfunding. Wir brauchen natürlich Kapital, um dann unsere Produktion zu starten und auch unseren ersten Eislöffel maschinell herzustellen.
Jetzt für den Start brauchen wir erstmal Kapital, um unsere Produktionskosten zu decken, um die erste Produktlinie zu produzieren und natürlich auch im Handel zu vertreiben. Da reden wir erstmal von 20.000 Euro. Das müssen wir erstmal etablieren.
Unsere Umwelt ist bedroht und wir brauchen eure Hilfe, dass ihr uns helft, unser Unternehmen groß zu machen, dass wir die Umwelt verändern können und die Umwelt plastikfreier machen. Und unser Motto unterstützt uns da.
Don't waste it.
Taste it.
Schenkt uns euer Vertrauen, denn nur gemeinsam können wir es schaffen.
Hi, we are Skipping Rocks Lab and our goal is to make packaging disappear.
Our first product, Ojo, is a membrane that can encapsulate water or any kind of liquids. It's made of seaweed and it's so natural that it's biodegradable and even edible. Cheers!
Since we started the company in 2014, we've been developing the technology and improving the properties of the material here in Imperial College London. With our industrial partners, we have developed an innovative manufacturing process that can produce Ojos cheaper than plastic bottles.
Ojo is perfect for hydration on the go. Think festivals, marathons, and on the street. For the past 6 months, we've been doing pilot events, and people love it. Now we're ready to take Ojo to bigger audiences, and we're targeting major events such as London Marathon and Glastonbury.
As part of this scale-up, we are developing a manufacturing machine that will produce Ojos automatically. Skipping Rocks Lab is bigger than just Ojo, and we are currently working in our second product, continuing to pioneer the use of seaweed for other sustainable packaging solutions.
Our fast-growing team is composed of chemists and engineers and a strong advisory board. Liz brings the business skills. She has 7 years of professional experience in the finance industry, private equity, and commercial development at BP.
Pierre and Rodrigo both graduated from the Royal College of Art and Imperial College London Masters in Innovation Design Engineering. Pierre was a packaging engineer at L'Oréal, and Rodrigo is an inventor and senior lecturer in product design. So, we are now raising our first round, and that's where you come in. Up until now, we've funded ourselves successfully through grants and awards. But it's time to let everyone share in Skipping Rocks Lab's success and be part of the movement to reduce plastic waste.
You can buy now shares of Skipping Rocks Lab for as little as £10 or as much as you want.
Think outside of the bottle. Invest in Skipping Rocks Lab.
Having a drink of water might never be the same again. Called Ojo, these jelly-like spheres are filled with liquid refreshment. Placed in the mouth and popped, it delivers a gulp of the beverage, along with some surprise.
It really does, it's really slow.
Developed by London-based startup Skipping Rocks Lab, the membrane packaging is made from seaweed. So it will easily biodegrade, but you can also just eat it.
It's quite strong if you think on it. It's quite tough. It's our work as well of engineering to make it resistant enough, but like enough so you don't kind of like choke on it. And we're working as well making double layers so you can peel them off if you have it in your pocket, or if you kind of like want it for hygienic reasons, you can just peel them and eat the inside.
The team hopes it will eventually help combat the problem of waste plastic bottles.
Most people just grab a bottle of water, hold it for 5 minutes, drink it, throw it away. How can that then exist for 700 years? So yeah, this is absolutely a solution to that.
The company smashed their crowdfunding target of £400,000 in just a few days. The money will help fund a new machine that can produce 100,000 Ojos a day. They're speaking to a number of commercial partners, but do have their eye on one particular market.
Obviously people see these small round bubbles and they just think shots. So that's definitely something we're looking at. We have encapsulated alcohol, we want to perfect it, and then hopefully this will be the Jaeger bomb of the future.
This summer, they'll be available at some marathons, with runners grabbing an Ojo en route instead of the usual plastic cup. And if the reaction of this crowd is anything to go by, Ojo is sure to make a splash.
Love that.
Liebe Komponisten, online Essen bestellen ist ein Megatrend. Ein Megatrend, der mega viel Müll produziert. Wir sind Vanilla Bean, ich bin Fabian.
Ich bin Tobi.
Ich bin Chris. Und ich bin Basti. In diesem Video erfahren Sie, wie Sie mit Vanilla Bean Ihr Essen erstmals komplett müllfrei bestellen können.
Letztes Jahr wurden deutschlandweit 112 Millionen Gerichte online bestellt. Das sind 27.000 Tonnen Verpackungsmüll, etwa 9 Millionen volle Mülleimer. Es ist Zeit für eine neue Art, Essen auszuliefern. Unsere Lösung funktioniert komplett ohne Müll. Dazu noch CO2-frei, fair und mit Fokus auf komplett veganer Küche. Und so funktioniert's. Der Kunde wählt über Vanilla Bean das Restaurant aus und bestellt sein Gericht. Dieses liefern wir in einer wiederverwendbaren Vanilla Bean Lunchbox. Fair und bezahlbar hergestellt aus Reisfasern. Das Essen kommt in einer neuen Box. Die alte klargespülte Box wandert zurück. Mehr Aufwand hat man nicht. Man muss nicht mal den Müll runterbringen. Damit alles sauber zugeht, werden die Boxen am Ende professionell vom Restaurant gereinigt. Mit unserem System sind auch Mehrfachbestellungen für das Büro möglich. Die übrigen Boxen werden bequem wieder abgeholt. Damit alles fein klappt, partnern wir mit dem sozialverträglichen Logistikspezialist Messenger und Experten aus der Forschung.
Das Müllproblem ist sehr hoch in Deutschland. Wir sind Verpackungs-Europameister sogar im negativen Sinne. Deswegen brauchen wir eben Lösungen für Konsumenten, die sich eben bequem in den Alltag auch integrieren lassen. Die Bereitschaft ist da von den Verbrauchern. Das haben halt mehrere Studien gezeigt. Die Verbraucher sind bereit, auf Verpackungen zu verzichten, wenn Lösungen angeboten werden.
Unsere Mission: zeigen, dass umweltfreundlicher Konsum super einfach geht. Und so funktioniert das Business. Der Kunde bestellt und wir erhalten marktübliche 25% vom Bestellwert als Provision vom Restaurant. Außerdem zahlt der Kunde eine Liefergebühr. Mit der ersten Bestellung kann man den Service testen. Danach zahlt man 10 € für eine Box und schon ist man dabei.
2019 starten wir mit unserem Lieferservice in Berlin. 2020 rechnen wir mit einem Jahresumsatz von 600.000 €. Unser Modell ist auf internationale Expansion ausgelegt und so rechnen wir damit, in 5 Jahren bereits einen Umsatz von 25 Millionen € zu erwirtschaften.
Gesundes Essen durch Lieferung von Nahrung aus einem veganen Restaurant in einer wiederverwertbaren Verpackung. Das, meine ich, ist ein geniales Gesamtbild. Und Vanilla Bean bietet das und deshalb habe ich Spaß und Freude, dass wir an dieser Entwicklung als Investoren teilhaben dürfen.
Der Lieferdienstmarkt ist ein spannender Markt, in dem es in den letzten Jahren viele Übernahmen durch die großen Anbieter wie Delivery Hero oder Just Eat gab. Allein diese 4 Player haben in den letzten Jahren 62 kleinere Plattformen aufgekauft. Dabei werden in der Regel Preise erzielt, die in einem positiven Szenario einen 50-fachen Return on Invest ermöglichen, wenn Sie jetzt investieren.
Wir entwickeln seit dem ersten iPhone erfolgreiche Apps und wurden vielfach dafür ausgezeichnet. Vanilla Bean ist aus dem Wunsch heraus entstanden, unsere Expertise für wirklich wichtige Probleme einzusetzen.
Mit der Vanilla Bean App haben wir uns in den letzten 3 Jahren in den USA, UK, Frankreich und Deutschland als der Restaurantguide für bewusste Konsumenten etabliert. Wir konnten bereits über 300.000 Nutzer gewinnen, die genau der Zielgruppe angehören, die wir jetzt mit unserem nachhaltigen Lieferservice ansprechen. Wir haben beste Voraussetzungen, Marktführer zu werden für Essenslieferungen im bewussten Konsumerbereich, weltweit.
Liebe Kompanisten, investieren Sie jetzt. Mit Ihnen werden wir in Berlin ein skalierbares Modell aufbauen. Zusammen entwickeln wir heute das Liefersystem der Zukunft.
This is absolutely astonishing. I never thought we would see this. It's sitting here doing nothing.
True. It's been here for months already.
Months?
Yeah, months.
People have put this in their recycling bins. They thought it was going to be recycled. And yet it's just stuck in this logjam. What they actually gave you from the UK was a mix of who knows what.
I'm not supposed to getting this. No one wants it.
There was high hopes for this. It was going to be recycled. It was going to have a new life. Now, because it's been shipped like this, it's just landfill fodder.
Yeah, the landfill. No other solution.
We've never consumed so much, and a lot of it is plastic. We produce 20 times more plastic today than we did 50 years ago. I want to find out what happens to it all. Where does it go? And how much of it actually gets recycled? What I discovered was a system that pushes the problem off our shores. The end result? Plastic piling up, and it isn't going away. It all starts here, at home. Like a lot of families, we produce our fair share of waste.
I think we're a bit different when it comes to recycling. I think I'm a good recycler. But what do you think?
I think you don't look at what needs to go in recycling.
2/3 of us admit to being confused about what can and can't be recycled.
So in this one, I've got the plastic bottles and tins.
Bottles, that's recyclable. Plastic, presumably, that's recyclable.
See, that's you.
What's wrong with that?
It's got food in it.
People talk about washing it, but I'm just not sure whether you need to do that. I just get it, finish with it. As soon as they're finished with it, I just bung it in the bin. Done. This isn't recyclable.
No, that'd be you.
Film, but it's plastic.
No, but that's the outer one, that's your inner one.
So this shouldn't be in that bin. Did you put it in it?
Of course not.
But I genuinely do find the whole thing very confusing. And I'm not convinced that it's actually worth doing. So why is it up to me?
I want to know more, so I'm hitching a ride with the guys who collect my own recycling bin. There are 450 councils with varying collection schemes and differing rules about what can and can't be recycled. If you don't get it right, it won't be collected.
Looking back on a track for a little greenback. Got to find just the kind of losing.
Morning. Morning. Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking back on a track, gonna do it my way.
So take me through whether this is a good bin or not.
Yeah, I'll have a quick look for you. That's looking very good at the moment.
And this is how you want to see it?
That's how we want to see it, yeah.
So the more things are sorted, the easier life is.
It is for us, yeah.
Right, we'll carry on then.
That's a very, very good bin again.
Cardboard,
right, plastic, bit of cardboard, cartons, everything, that's spot on.
Good.
This is going to get Italian off because we've got cardboard with glass. That's a no-no. So these are going to get Italian off, putting this label in there. Like that.
What are you like in your recycling then?
Me, mine's spot on.
So you wash your yoghurt pots out and you sort your glass from your plastic?
Well, my missus does.
Yeah.
Yoghurt pots, baked bean tins, wash out. If not, they're smelling all the time. The bins are.
What's the best aspect of this job?
Knocking off. Knocking off. That's brilliant. Once the last bin go on, you think, all time.
The day's collection ends here, my local depot. It's then picked up and hauled off to a sorting plant. And there's lots of it. In just 1 year, British households throw 22 million tonnes of waste into the bin. EU targets demand that we recycle half of that by 2020, but rates are stagnating at just 44%.
I started doing this job in January. It opened my eyes to recycling. When I come to places like these, you see how much can actually go into a lorry. It's very, very distressing in some cases. we might load up 20 tonne today. You think 20 tonne? That might be over a day or two.
But if you thought all of that plastic ended up being recycled, then you're in for a big shock. All this plastic might get collected, but it doesn't mean it'll get another life.
We know that we used to recycle very little indeed. We know that if you take some products, you are recycling probably 40 or 50% of what goes into the marketplace. But we know on other things that we're actually recycling practically nothing.
On a global scale, the numbers are staggering.
78 million tons of plastic packaging get produced every year. And then after very often a very short use, just 14% of that plastic packaging gets collected for recycling, and even less of that, just 2% gets recycled at high quality into new packaging. Then another 14% gets burned after use, another 40% gets landfilled, and a quite staggering 1/3 of all plastic packaging ends up polluting the environment.
I found it astonishing that around the world, only 2% of our plastic packaging gets recycled. I wanted to see what happened with my plastic.
When I was in my kitchen the other day, my children eating their yogurt pots, as we do a lot. From time to time, those yogurt pots end up in here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those yogurt pots end up here, along with about 60,000 tonnes of other people's yogurt pots during the course of a year.
By the time my recycling's landed here, it's travelled nearly 200 miles and gone through countless hands. It's an industry that employs nearly 20,000 workers.
We take in material from people's bins and we turn it back into resources.
By the time the waste that's behind you leaves here, it's actually quite a valuable commodity. Explain what the market is like for plastic at the moment.
The market for plastic is fairly volatile, but it's fairly strong. It's all resources. All of this is resources, and I don't want to waste a bit. We want to turn those into the maximum value for the market we possibly can.
It turns out that a lot of our plastic doesn't get processed here. It's exported overseas. And one country has taken more of it than any other: China.
We live in a commercial world. It's no different to any other material. It will go wherever the market demand. It will go to the highest bidder. China has been an important market for the export of plastics from the UK.
China imports 10 million tons of plastic. They don't do it just to give plastic a good home. They do it because they need it to feed the manufacturing process. It's a value commodity. It's a resource that gets used to produce products. It's not a way of disposing of material.
But as China's appetite for plastic scrap increased, a big problem started to develop. Whole villages grew dedicated to sorting through the world's filthy plastic. One man documented what he found.
然后我捡起每一块垃圾去看分辨。哦，这块垃圾来自于英国，这块垃圾来自于德国，这块垃圾来自于日本，上面有文字我可以看得出来。那么多的垃圾， 没有一块垃圾是中国的。所以当时我有一个非常直观的印象，就是中国简直沦为了一个世界的垃圾城，这是我非常大的一个感受。我们整个垃圾的去向，我们有权利知道我们的垃圾去了哪儿，它是怎么被处理的，是否意味着环境友好。即便离开了中国，它一定会在地球另一个角落上演。
It was a wake-up call for China, who saw this as a big problem they had to deal with. Their reaction would send shockwaves around the world. I'm trying to find out what happens to all our recycling. It's a journey that's taken me thousands of miles to the other side of the world. Hong Kong is the world's gateway to China. It's through this artery that much of the world's plastic scrap passes on its way to be processed on the mainland. In July 2017, China rocked the recycling world by announcing it would impose tough restrictions on the import of foreign waste. They called it National Sword.
We've become more and more conscious of waste. We've seen a lot more publicity, more and more people know that they want to recycle, and that they get very frustrated when they can't, but they don't know where it goes. There's always this assumption that it will be being reprocessed and made into good things in the UK, but frequently it's not, because it's easier and in many ways cheaper to put it into a container and send it through Hong Kong into China.
That's a decision of let's pass it on to someone else and then worry about it.
From a business point of view, you say, well, why not? Government equally is moving the problem away. It's still achieving our recycling targets that have been set, but it's maybe at somebody else's expense.
Just try and sum up to me what our policy in the UK has been regarding China.
Cheap, easy solution, let's put it in a container in Felixstowe and wave bye-bye. But China is saying, and has been for a little while, why are we receiving your mixed rubbish? All sorts of things have been smuggled in there, been hidden. So they became more and more strict under a program called National Sword.
China's message was brutally clear. Any dirty, contaminated plastic would be flatly rejected. The kind of plastic Britain's been sending China for decades.
We export about 60% of the packaging plastic waste that we collect. And of that 2/3 that we export, about a third, 40% of that goes to China. Operation National Sword had a big impact in that it's almost halved the amount of plastic going to China. That's the problem that we've now got with China, who are now saying, actually, we don't want this low quality stuff anymore. So we're going to close our doors and you're going to have to find somewhere else.
Finding somewhere else for the plastic is proving very difficult. I've come to meet Tony Wong. He's been trading plastic for 20 years, and he has a lot of it sitting in this yard in Hong Kong, because China won't take it.
Right, okay. So this is full of varying amounts of plastic.
It is. It's about a value of over $10,000.
Right.
But now, because stuck in here and the market changed because of the importing, maybe $7,000, 30% down.
So stuff that's been
washed
and clean, and this is good stuff for you?
Nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong at all. Look at this.
Yeah.
Even no smell. It's good,
Yeah.
clean material.
And I can see you're very passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, well, I see the money. I see the business. To me, not like
solid gold, but it's a gold, you know, in here. Yeah.
Right, who would have thought it?
Yeah. It's very standard kind of items for us.
You just need a country that's willing to take it.
Of course, yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes, to put home for them, to turn back into value.
This is now the world's bottleneck for plastic scrap. Tons of it stuck in limbo. The big question now, where's it all going to go? Meet the man who's made his fortune in recycling. Steve Wong works with Tony to import tens of thousands of tons of plastic through Hong Kong to be processed in China.
So all of these plastic film bags have come over on a container from the United Kingdom to here to your place.
Originally, these would have processed in China.
They're not interested in it when it's like this.
Yeah, that's right.
But China's ban means Steve has to ship his plastic somewhere else. He's looking to neighbouring countries in which to process China's unwanted plastic. He's heading to Thailand, and I'm going with him.
Is it overstating it to say that the survival of your business rests on this surge?
There's no choice, because when the doors are shut, you're not allowed to import anything anymore. The only solution is you go other country to continue our business.
Over several days, I followed Steve from site to site. He's running out of time to find a place which is capable of dealing with the plastic he wants to recycle.
Wind to blow.
It's very important that I need to come myself to experience, to feel about it.
And are you happy with what you see here?
The big question here is whether Thailand can cope with what China is rejecting. What we saw at one processing plant put all that in doubt. Here we found recycling from the UK, sitting, we were told, for more than a year. Then, more disturbing, biohazard bags. Being melted down to be turned into anything from children's toys to household appliances.
And I'm looking for a place like more decent than this place. The place is quite messy. You see water everywhere.
And also the production quite low. You see a lot of broken machines.
See workers don't really work professionally.
What struck me was the bags and bags of, non-recyclable waste. Some of it was clearly from the UK that was just going to sit there for however long. Is that a sign of what can get through the system, what can slip through the net?
I think this is why China stopped importation of plastic scrap, because the exporters, they thought that they can put anything in the container and China can recycle. We also don't want to see the same thing happen to Thailand.
The ban on importing recycled plastics into China can be a great opportunity for the UK. It forces the UK to rethink how they deal with their plastics post-use. It can also go the bad way, where we would continue exporting the plastics far abroad, where the infrastructure is even worse than in China, and where we perhaps believe it gets recycled because we have collected and sorted and sent it there. But actually, what happens there is it perhaps gets burned or it gets treated in a way that's negative for the local environment.
I wanted to know how Britain would cope if we had to deal with our own plastic instead of sending it abroad. What's going to happen when China closes the door? It wasn't going to be good news. I've spent months investigating what happens to our recycling. Of all the plastic we've been sending abroad all these years, a staggering 60% of exports have been going to one place, China. Problem is, they don't want it anymore. I've come to one of the biggest plastic processors in Britain to find out why we've been sending so much material abroad and where all this plastic's going to go now.
PET is in the region of £200 a tonne. That's carbonated drinks and water bottles. Milk bottles, detergent bottles, they're about £300 a tonne.
Why are you exporting it? Why can't we just deal with it here in the UK?
The restrictions in the UK is capacity. Historically, there hasn't been a growth that matches the recovery of the materials from the waste management authorities and local authorities. The capacity doesn't meet the demand. We're not a big island. We've got a small amount of land mass. Where do we put this material? I think it's a failing in the system. It's easier to put it in a container and export it rather than spend significant amounts of money putting it in a processing plant. It's well known that there is a poor auditing system for materials that go overseas to China or Asia particularly. It's generally out of sight, out of mind. We'd rather not know what's happening to it, as long as it's not on our back door.
The truth of the matter is that we will have no idea at all whether this gets a new life, actually properly recycled.
No, we don't. We don't know whether it's burnt, buried, or just left on the side of the street.
So we don't have enough processors to deal with all our plastic. But there's another reason we've been pushing our waste abroad all these years. The Packaging Recovery Note, or PRN, is a government subsidy designed to encourage recycling. Let's take a tonne of plastic scrap. A UK recycler processes that plastic, and because of contaminants like labels, glues or liquids, might only get half a tonne of recycled plastic from it. They would earn half a subsidy or half a PRN. However, an exporter can take that tonne of plastic scrap, contaminants and all, and ship it off to be recycled abroad. That tonne of scrap is counted as fully recycled, and the full PRN subsidy is earned. But no checks are made as to how much recycled plastic is actually produced, and so it encourages export.
The PRN system was designed to subsidise the recycler, to help him have confidence to invest in more equipment that will recycle more material, that will then grow the infrastructure in the UK. But unfortunately, the system was designed that it was weighted towards the exporter. So that whole bale would be eligible for a PRN, whereas us as a recycler, we're only eligible for what we separate and reprocess. The weight for the exporter is much more attractive than that on the recycler.
So once it goes in this container, the whole container gets issued with that evidence note.
Correct.
Whereas if you have to deal with it in the UK, it might only be like 40, 50% if you're lucky.
Correct.
So the incentive is to bung it in a container and send it away. You still get the credit for it, in fact for all of it. rather than deal with it here in the UK.
Correct. We're not getting the full value of that subsidy, whereas the exporter is getting the full value by weight.
It seemed to me that the ban imposed by China could actually be an opportunity for British business. Javed Mauji set up his own plastic processing business in 2014. He tried to do the right thing by recycling here in the UK.
How would you describe how Britain's recycling industry, what state do you think it is in?
It's absolutely terrible. I mean, it's a mishmash. It doesn't work properly, and it's the whole structure of the British recycling sector at the moment seems to be focused on export the waste, don't process it here, because there's no incentive to process anything here. There's an incentive to export.
When it launched, Javed's company Ecotech was doing well.
No one said it would be easy.
But success was short-lived. He just couldn't compete with the exporters.
How does it feel coming back to it?
That's pretty unpleasant, actually. But I mean, I haven't been back here since the company went into administration. It was a very, very painful process, not only financially, but also in terms of lost jobs and also in terms of lost capacity for the UK's recycling business. So we as a UK company, we would get a PRN on what actually came out the other end. So whereas if you were exporting, you would get the PRN on the entire value.
So if you export plastic bottles, on the records, you've recycled all of them.
That's correct.
But not necessarily all of them were recycled.
That's exactly it.
But it had absolutely no bearing on the figure that was jotted down in the book.
Well, I think that the reality is that the UK recycling rates are exaggerated by the PRN system.
So you, in a way, would say that you were a victim of that system?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what is the incentive from the government to get rid of a system which is favourable to our recycling rates?
Well, it looks like we're recycling far more than we are.
It's a problem. What that system does, not only does it mean we're over-reporting recycling rates, we're actually undermining the competitiveness of our own domestic plastic reprocessors. We're actually exporting value. We could be reprocessing that material here. We had better quality material. If we were making sure that we were accounting for the recycling properly, we would not have this competitive disadvantage for our domestic reprocessors vis-à-vis those overseas.
It is a serious flaw that we don't know well enough what happens to quite a bit of the recycling. We export a lot of plastic to be recycled. I myself think that we should have a system where we are much more likely to use that at home, because you know where it's gone. If you export it, and it's increasingly difficult to do that, the Chinese are increasingly not accepting it, you don't always know where it's gone.
This is where it's gone. I was about to discover what happens when the recycling system fails. There are thousands of tons of plastic scrap lying in this yard, shipped from the UK in containers.
Tons and tons of plastic sitting in a yard on the outskirts of Hong Kong, doing nothing.
Chu, it's been here for months already.
Months?
Yeah, months. I haven't go to the site to look at the material. He sent me the photos, which of course not like this.
What were you expecting?
We're expecting only bottles.
And what did you actually get in the end?
Film, rigid plastics, and even some paper in here. No one willing to handle it, okay? No one willing, because it's labor intensive.
No one wants this stuff?
No one wants it.
It's just landfill fodder.
Yeah, the landfill. It's for landfill. No other solution.
It was an extraordinary sight. This recycling had been collected and then shipped, just like the system encouraged. Now it had been left to rot.
How do you feel about the person who shipped this to you?
Oh, upset. Totally upset.
Then we found bags from Chelmsford Council in Essex. And I realised that this plastic had travelled nearly 6,000 miles. Hundreds of tons of plastic recycling from British homes sits in Hong Kong, destined for landfill. It's a shocking sight, and disheartening to think that people had taken the time to sort it, thinking they were doing the right thing. Amongst it all, we found household recycling bags from Chelmsford Council in Essex. So I went to Chelmsford Council to see what they know about where their recycling goes and what's ultimately done with it.
We collect more plastics here in Chelmsford than what a lot of the neighbouring authorities do. These are our collection system bags. We allow about 3.5 per week to the resident, which we deliver free of charge once a year. We put a lot of trust in the people that take away, obviously, our material.
I went to Hong Kong 2 weeks ago. I find a yard like this. This arrow is a pack of recycling from the UK. Unfortunately, that comes from Chelmsford Council. It was not to the quality that the receiving end wanted, and so it was rejected. And the unfortunate fact is that you can never tell where your material's going.
I think that will be absolutely investigated. But there's no way we can be happy about that.
No, we're very concerned.
From what you've just highlighted, something has gone wrong down the road, which obviously raises a huge question for us, doesn't it, really? One that will be, as we say,
will be thoroughly
investigated.
And once we find out the detail behind it, we will take steps to, we'll take whatever steps are needed to resolve it in future.
Yeah. We don't want the idea that our material is ending up in a landfill site on foreign lands or in a yard somewhere. We want to make sure that material is being recycled as we've explained to our residents.
Then I received a package sent anonymously. Photographs of plastic packaging from the UK, destined for recycling, but now it appeared left sitting on a site in Poland. It looked like another case in which the system had gone badly wrong. I wanted to know more, so I headed to Poland and took along an expert on plastic packaging to take a look.
I've worked in the waste industry for 20 years and I've been involved in packaging waste for the last 15. So bales of plastic is quite a common sight.
This yard is owned by a British plastics exporter, the same exporter whose plastic we found in Hong Kong. It's a mix of bottles, tubs, food trays and film, all piled up in bales.
Oh, this is carrier bags. Look at it.
Wow.
These are beyond recycling. This is
starting
just degraded.
Wow.
The first thing is it's degraded to such a level, it's not really viable for recycling it. It's not really suitable for recycling it. Anything that's stored on a site for over 12 months is deemed to be disposal and therefore landfill. And that could be deemed as a crime and there could be prosecution action taken against them. To me, it looks like its inevitable destination's a landfill site. It looks like curbside recycling. Certainly there's carrier bags there that are from a local council that show that a householder's gone to the effort of putting all their plastic waste into a bag.
This is Chelmsford Council. It's not the first time I've seen a Chelmsford Council bag in a place where you wouldn't expect to see it.
These are mixed waste bales.
What's that mean?
What it means is it's cardboard, metals, plastic all mixed together, and if they've come from the UK, and certainly with some of the containers in here it looks like they're from the UK, they shouldn't be exported.
What is the chance that this was brought here to be recycled?
Because of the high amount of cardboard in it and it's being stored outside, there's no chance of this being recycled.
Plastic scrap shipped from the UK can earn a packaging recovery note, or PRN. That's the evidence note to say something's been recycled, but no one checks to see if it's actually been recycled. And incredibly, it counts as recycled towards our EU target. The exporter gets paid, no matter what.
I mean, you could say that the whole package recovery note system for exporters is just like money for nothing, license to print money.
You could say that, but the intention of the system was that the money from PRNs would go back into increasing infrastructure.
But it looks like in some cases it's being abused.
I think the system's got that inherent risk in it. When things are transported across countries, across boundaries, it's very difficult to keep track of them. The amount of, and I'll call it pure waste, that is lying on the ground, the films that have degraded, the carrier bags that are flaking into nothing. And it's highly unlikely those are going to be recycled. So effectively, they've been brought here to be landfilled, to be disposed of.
We found more evidence of plastic from Britain ending up overseas, and some of it was so badly decayed that landfill was the only option. We contacted Chelmsford Council again to tell them we'd seen more of their recycling in Poland. After looking into it, Chelmsford confirmed that the plastic we'd found in Hong Kong and Poland had gone through companies accredited as reprocessors and exporters of packaging waste from the Environment Agency. They said they remain confident their approach has the least environmental impact of all recycling practices. The reason why Britain has been sending so much plastic overseas is that the PRN system actively encouraged it. Among those who are critical of the scheme is the man who came up with the idea in the first place, former Environment Minister John Gummer, now Lord Deben.
There are several problems with it. First of all, I don't think we have sufficient control over where it goes. Secondly, I don't think we have sufficient control over the quality of what is in there. In other words, you can have mixed up in that material things that are not going to be recycled. And the third thing is, China is now, from the 1st of January, not to accept it. I think we ought to be recycling it here and in the rest of Europe.
But the problem, as you well know, is the problem with the PRN or the PRN system is it incentivizes export.
It does. In certain circumstances, not all, but most circumstances, you are incentivized to export it. That's nonsense and shouldn't happen, and we should change it.
In 2015, DEFRA commissioned a series of independent briefing notes looking at the PRN scheme. We've obtained them. They raised concerns about the system. The briefing notes warned that competition is insufficient and there's a lack of transparency, and that local councils saw little if any benefit from the money raised. The system was seen to favour export, with low-quality waste providing a cheap disposal route for contaminants. And worryingly, the paper's repeated concerns that the PRN scheme doesn't work to encourage investment in the UK reprocessing industry. But these briefing notes were never made public, and no changes were made to to the PRN system. In June, Michael Gove was appointed Environment Secretary and walked straight into a crisis. A month later, China said they'd ban imports at the start of 2018. A committee of MPs wanted to know what the new Environment Secretary was going to do about it.
China has notified the WTO that it's going to stop importing plastic waste and unsorted paper.
Yes.
What impact do you think this will have on the UK's waste economy, and what preparations are you making?
I don't know what impact it will have. It's a very good question, and something to which I'll be completely honest, I have not given sufficient thought.
Okay, reassuring.
I want to firstly just go back to November, to that Environmental Audit Committee, where they were talking about the impact of the ban that China was intending to impose on plastic imports. And you'll remember you said that you hadn't given it much thought. Given that British business, British processors believe that this is huge, do you regret that?
Yes, it's a significant issue. I hadn't given it enough thought. But what we're doing now is everything we can in order to ensure that we turn what is a challenge into an opportunity. We've been exporting too much waste. What we need to do is to make sure that we reduce the amount that we produce and also process more of it at home.
Do you think that we have the capacity now to deal with the plastic that would have otherwise gone to China?
Naturally, the fact that China is going to close its doors to a significant amount of that plastic puts an additional challenge on us here in the UK.
I want to talk about capacity because I want to spend the next minute of this interview just showing you some footage that we filmed in Poland and in Hong Kong. It shows tens of thousands of tons of plastic on yards that has been abandoned.
Wow. These are beyond recycling. These are mixed waste bales.
What's that mean?
What it means is it's cardboard, metals, plastic all mixed together. It looks like they're from the UK. They shouldn't be exported.
But what's your view about what you've just seen?
Well, it reinforces the case for the reforms that I've already explained that we plan to implement. That the PRN scheme at the moment, while it has significantly improved recycling rates, and recycling rates have grown over the course of the last 20 years, it's still not good enough.
Then the government revealed its long-awaited 25-year plan for the environment. In that plan, the government provided no details of any proposed changes to the PRN scheme.
We're probably deluding ourselves. We think we have a system that's better than it is. And actually, if it isn't a very good system, well, we should improve it.
Recycling should be modern and close to home, but it must be recognised that helping the environment does come at a cost. The cheap way is let's dump it somewhere else.
I don't think we're planning quick enough, and I think it needs investment, I think it needs government support, and I think we need facilities such as these to accept that volume of material. We have to look at reprocessing it domestically. It's our waste, our problem, we should be recycling it.
When I first started this journey, I had no idea where our recycling ended up. But I found it. Scattered thousands of miles across the globe, abandoned in yards from Eastern Europe to Asia, out of sight, out of mind. What I learned was that until we as a nation take responsibility for what we put in our bins, create a system we can trust, this problem's going to pile up, and we can't afford to ignore it.